good evening, and welcome to Dreamy Cozy Library. Tonight, we journey into a quiet, snow-hushed world, a place where the air smells of pine and baking spices, and the only rush is the soft drift of flakes against the window pane. We are stepping into the deep, enduring peace of Christmas Eve, where the world is held in a state of suspended animation, waiting, glowing, and supremely still. Settle down now. Find the most comfortable spot you can imagine, a place where you feel utterly secure and warm. Take a deep, slow breath in, inhaling the stillness of the moment, and let it back out, releasing the tightness you may be holding in your shoulders or your brow. Let the rhythm of this narrative become the rhythm of your own slow, steady heart. Tonight, we follow a path lit by golden lamplight, guided by the scent of warm cinnamon and the soft magic of quiet giving. We are traveling to a village named Ethelred, nestled deep within a valley, shielded from the sharper edges of the world by high snow-dusted hills. It is a place of old stone and polished wood, where every cottage seems to hold the concentrate essence of warmth. In Ethelred, the hours slow down into minutes, and the minutes soften into pure, suspended peace. The moment we join this quiet village is the moment the sun has fully retired, leaving behind a sky of deep, star-studded indigo, already beginning to release a new, soft coating of snow. The story we are about to enter belongs to Clara, a baker whose hands know the precise language of comfort. She is the soul of the Hearth and Crumb, a small bakery tucked at the corner of the village square. And it is here, amidst the fading heat of the brick ovens, that our gentle evening begins. Close your eyes now and let the warmth of Clara's bakery surround you. Let the stillness of Christmas Eve hold you and drift into the softest sleep imaginable. The Hearth and Crumb. The interior of the Hearth and Crumb, even late on Christmas Eve, was a study in profound sensory warmth. The air was heavy and rich, a complex aroma woven from years of dedicated work. The nutty depth of browned butter, the sharp, clean fragrance of lemon zest, the earthy sweet presence of molasses, and the high comforting note of yeast. Above all, there was the deep, residual heat of the two immense brick ovens radiating outward through the thick walls, giving the room a sustained dry warmth that defied the biting cold outside. Clara moved with the slow, almost ceremonial movements of someone who is deeply connected to their craft. She was not rushing, her work was done, but the final meditative act of cleaning and putting away was a form of reverence. She wore a simple linen apron, dusted with the fine veil of powdered sugar, and her hands, capable of kneading the toughest dough, now gently polished the long, smooth wooden counter. She was just finishing the last tray of winter star pastries, small delicate puffs of cardamom spiced dough folded over a dollop of plum preserves. These were not for selling, they were her own quiet offering, reserved specifically for the people she knew needed a touch of warmth and sweetness on a night designed for communal joy. Each pastry was perfectly shaped, dusted with a light, shimmering cloud of sugar, looking like a fresh snowflake caught and preserved in amber light. The only sounds in the bakery were the soft thunk of her cleaning rag hitting the counter, the faint, high tinkle of the bell above the closed front door whenever the outside temperature dipped suddenly, and the deep, contented sigh of the cooling ovens as they shrank back into silence. Outside, the snow was falling, not in a violent, wind-driven flurry, but in large, quiet flakes that drifted straight down, accumulating on the wide wooden windowsills. Clara paused in her work, leaning against the sturdy, flour-dusted counter, taking a deep breath of the air she had nurtured all day. This was the moment she cherished, the profound stillness after the long, satisfying chaos of baking. Earlier that day, the bakery had been a hive of happy activity, the rush of final orders, the sound of cheerful greetings, the warmth of human voices. Now it was a sanctuary, a quiet, glowing space dedicated entirely to the memory of those cheerful moments. She looked over her inventory, which was now neatly stacked and covered. The fat loaves of braided challah destined for the inn, the perfectly symmetrical stollen for the church supper, the towering stacks of ginger snaps for the children's treats. Everything was accounted for. Everything was ready for the morning. She thought of the smiles that her work would ignite, the comfort her creations would provide, and a feeling of immense, quiet satisfaction settled over her shoulders like a warm shawl. Clara poured herself a small, steaming cup of leftover cinnamon and orange peel tea from a thermos she kept nestled by the oven. The warmth of the ceramic cup felt smooth and grounding in her hands. She sipped the dark, fragrant liquid slowly, letting the cinnamon's spicy heat travel from her tongue to the center of her chest. It was time for the quiet work, the work of the night. She took a small, sturdy wicker basket, its handle smoothed by years of use, and lined it with a clean, checkered cloth. Into this basket, she carefully placed 12 of the winter star pastries, arranging them with meticulous care so that their delicate shapes would not be disturbed by the slight motion of her walk. She added 3 small, dense loaves of her special date and walnut bread, wrapped in brown parchment and tied with simple, thick twine. These, she knew, were the kinds of food that provided deep, enduring sustenance, necessary for those who spent the long winter nights working or living in quiet, solitary contemplation. She put on her heavy, dark blue wool coat, which smelled faintly of yeast and old wood smoke, and wrapped a thick, cream-colored scarf around her neck, pulling it up high over her chin. She secured the brass latch on the bakery door, listening to the solid click of the lock, the final sound of the hard and cramped workday. Stepping out onto the wooden porch, the immediate sensation was a profound, invigorating shock of cold. The air, which had seemed so rich and warm inside, was now thin, sharp, and clean, a complete contrast. It smelled of snow, frozen earth, and the distant, pure scent of pine trees carried on the slight breeze. She paused for a moment, letting her eyes adjust to the deep night sky, where the light of the village seemed to push back the immediate darkness, leaving the high heavens scattered with an immense, breathtaking array of stars. She was ready for her quiet pilgrimage, her gentle journey through the snow-hushed streets. The only sounds were the soft crunch of her own boots on the freshly laid snow and the distant, almost muffled sound of the village bell tower chiming the hour. 7 distinct, deep tones that dissolved quickly into the heavy, humid air. The first stop on her route was just across the square, toward the slightly larger cottage with the dim light glowing steadily in the front window. This was the home of Mr. Silas, the village lamplighter. The village square of Ethelred was the perfect center of its quiet world. It was wide and flat, framed by the silhouettes of ancient, heavy-limbed oaks, their branches now softened by thick layers of white snow. At the center of the square stood a small stone fountain, now silent and frozen, its form softened into a gentle white mound. Surrounding the square were the few essential buildings: the general store, the post office, the church, and Clara's bakery. Mr. Silas's small, neat cottage was distinguishable by the low, continuous golden glow emanating from its window, a light that never seemed to waver. Silas was the quiet guardian of the village's evening path. For decades, it had been his steady, unhurried task to walk the perimeter of Ethelred at dusk, using his long, graceful pole to ignite the oil lamps one by one, bringing small, perfect pools of golden light to the snowy streets. Clara approached his cottage slowly, her steps hushed by the thick carpeting of snow. She didn't need to knock loudly. Silas was never far from his heart on Christmas Eve, and he was a man keenly attuned to the subtle sounds of the night. Before she could lift her hand, the heavy wooden door opened, not with a jarring yank, but with a slow, smooth push. Silas stood framed in the doorway, a slender man with kind, permanently creased eyes, and a long white beard that seemed to catch the golden light from inside his home. He was wearing thick wool suspenders over a dark flannel shirt, and the air around him smelled faintly of oil and clean cotton. "Clara," he said, his voice a low, gravelly whisper that blended perfectly with the quiet of the night. "I had the distinct feeling I should wait a moment longer before tending to the fire. You bring the sweetest warmth with you, even on the coldest night." "Silas," Clara replied, her voice soft and low, matching his reverence for the silence. "You've spent the evening bringing light to all of us. I thought I should bring a little warmth back to your corner." She presented the basket. Silas took it with both hands, the weight of the basket and the warmth of the baking radiating immediately into his palms. He peered down at the pastries and the bread, and a profound, quiet smile lifted the corners of his eyes. "The winter stars," he murmured. "I thought I smelled them drifting down the square earlier. Cardamom and plum. There is no better scent to mix with the clean air of Christmas Eve." He stepped back, inviting her into the doorway, out of the falling snow, but not asking her to stay long. He knew her mission required movement. The interior of Silas's home was small, impeccably neat, and utterly focused on his work and his solitude. Against one wall, his long brass lamplighting pole stood leaning, polished, and ready for the morning rounds. The room was dominated by a fireplace, where a small steady fire burned. A fire for warmth, not for spectacle. A kettle sat quietly on a hook over the flames, steaming gently. "I have my own preparations for the dawn," Silas said, closing the door softly. "I spent the long hours tending the oil, cleaning the glass. These quiet tasks are my version of the anticipation. You have given me a sweet companion for the night's watch." Clara nodded, pulling her scarf tighter. "It is an honor to share the waiting with you, Silas. May the light you bring to the town tonight return to you 100-fold. And may the warmth you bake into the bread sustain you, Clara," he replied. "Go now, the snow is falling beautifully, and the quiet streets await your footsteps." With another soft, gravelly whisper of thanks, Silas closed the door. Clara heard the gentle clink of the basket being placed on a wooden table, followed by the quiet swoosh of the kettle being adjusted over the flame. The scene was one of contained, peaceful domesticity, a perfect encapsulation of a well-lived, quiet life. She turned and stepped back into the snow. The lamplights Silas had ignited earlier were now softly blurring through the falling flakes, turning the village streets into a series of interconnected golden spheres. The silence seemed even deeper after the brief, whispered conversation. Clara continued her journey, allowing the light from the bakery and Silas's window to fade into the gentle background glow. Her next destination required her to walk along the winding main lane of Ethelred, toward the large, imposing shape of the old toymaker's shop. The lane leading away from the square was marked by a steady row of the lamplighter's work, small iron-wrought lamps, each casting a delicate pool of orange-yellow light that barely pierced the falling snow, but which provided just enough illumination to turn the path ahead into a soft, inviting tunnel. Clara walked slowly, deliberately, not wishing to disrupt the profound quiet of the night. Her steps were soft, muffled by the fresh powder. She looked up at the way the light caught the individual snowflakes as they descended, each one a brief, shimmering star, before it landed and melted into the growing white carpet. The lamplight revealed the charming architecture of the village, the steep, tiled roofs, now thick with snow, the heavy wooden doors, banded with iron, and the small windows, nearly all of them shuttered or dimly lit, indicating that the families within were already settled into their beds, waiting for the bells of morning. After perhaps 400 quiet steps, she reached the building that housed the workshop and residence of Mr. Alistair, the village toymaker. Unlike the uniform warmth of the bakery or the steady glow of Silas's cottage, the toymaker's shop was marked by a diffuse, almost ethereal light that spilled out from every pane of glass. It was not the light of a fire, but the soft, silver-blue glow of a working lamp, a lamp focused on fine, meticulous craft. Alistair was a man whose hands possessed an almost magical dexterity. He rarely left his shop on Christmas Eve, as it was his tradition to complete the final, most intricate pieces of the year, finishing the delicate details that only the quieter hours of the night could allow. Clara approached the large, bowed window, which was filled with a dizzying display of his creations, now softly illuminated by the light from within. There were small, perfect wooden horses with polished manes, intricate mechanical birds with tiny brass wings, and dolls with serene, painted porcelain faces. The sight was enchanting, a silent, frozen museum of wonder. Clara gently knocked on the thick, low door, not with her knuckles, but with the heel of her hand, creating a soft, deep thud that carried just enough weight to penetrate the thick wood. The sound of her knock was instantly followed by the sound of a quickly scraped chair and the quiet, measured walk of the toymaker across the floorboards. The door opened, revealing Alistair, a short, sturdy man with intense, magnified eyes, wearing a simple leather apron and spectacles pushed up on his forehead. The air that escaped his workshop was sharp and clean, carrying the powerful, invigorating scent of sandalwood and finely shaved pine. "Clara," Alistair said, his voice a focused, steady drone, like the hum of a tiny electric motor. "I knew someone of such quiet generosity would still be awake. Come in, just for a moment." Out of the snow, Clara stepped across the threshold, and the contrast with the outside was immediate. The room was cold, not warm, but it was filled with a concentrated, energetic quiet. The air was dry and aromatic. Every surface was covered in a controlled chaos of tools and materials, piles of tiny curved wood shavings that looked like delicate orange peels, coils of fine wire, small pots of vibrant paint, and scattered mounds of soft cotton wool. The only source of the powerful light was a single hooded lamp, focused directly onto a sturdy, worn wooden workbench. "You're still at work, Alistair," Clara observed, keeping her voice low. "Yes, the final touches," he said, gesturing toward the workbench with a small, precise wooden stylus he held in his hand. "The eyes, Clara. They are always the last thing. They must be set in the deepest quiet, so they may reflect the true calm of the night." On the bench, resting on a bed of velvet cloth, was a small, 3-inch tall figure of a miniature Nutcracker general, a work of staggering detail. Alistair was carefully painting a single, tiny luminous dot of white onto the dark wood of its eye. Clara presented the basket, offering him the 3 loaves of date and walnut bread. "Sustenance for the all-night watch, Alistair. You can't survive on the smell of pine shavings alone." Alistair accepted the gift with the same care he used to handle his most delicate carvings. He held the warm, heavy loaves against his chest for a moment, inhaling the deep, comforting aroma of the baked walnuts and spice, a scent so different from the sharp, cold wood of his workshop. "My hands thank you, Clara. They are tired of the rigidity of the wood and the hardness of the brass. This bread is the softest feeling I will know all night. It is a profound kindness." He led her to a small, low shelf and returned her kindness with a gift of his own, a tiny, smooth, perfectly carved wooden mouse, no larger than her thumb, polished to a perfect, soft sheen. It smelled distinctly of sandalwood. "Keep this in your coat pocket, Clara," he instructed. "It is a simple charm. The wood is old and quiet. It will remind you of the stillness when the noise of the morning begins again." Clara accepted the small offering, the wood cool and smooth against the palm of her hand. She placed it carefully into the inner pocket of her coat. "Thank you, Alistair. May the last of your work be your finest, and may the peace of this evening stay with you. Go now, Clara. I must return to the general's gaze," he said, already turning back toward the intensely bright pool of light on his workbench, the nutcracker waiting patiently for its eyes to be opened to the wonder of Christmas morning. Clara stepped back into the night, pulling the door closed softly behind her. The transition from the dry, cold air of the workshop back to the humid, snowy air of the street was subtle but noticeable. She touched the wooden mouse in her pocket, feeling the small, smooth shape grounding her, carrying the scent of sandalwood out into the quiet snow. The street ahead wound down a gentle slope toward the edge of the village, where the ancient, timber-framed structure of the King's Head Inn stood, her next destination. The path from the toymaker's shop followed the curve of a frozen stream, whose banks were lined with weeping willows, their long, delicate branches now cased in glittering sheaths of ice. The sound of the stream, usually a lively, gurgling presence, was now completely silenced, encased beneath the heavy snow. The world was utterly muffled, sound absorbed by the vast, white blanket. The King's Head Inn was the largest structure in Ethelred, a venerable building made of heavy, dark oak timbers and white stucco. It was the only building in the village designed for constant, necessary noise. The clatter of plates, the warm roar of voices, the heavy thump of travel-worn bags dropped on the floorboards, but on Christmas Eve even the inn observed a profound quiet. The windows of the main dining room were dark, the bar shuttered. Only a few windows on the second floor showed a dim, consistent light, marking the rooms of the few, quiet travelers who happened to be passing through. Clara knew the inn's owner, a kindly woman named Agnes, kept a small essential staff working late into the night, attending to the few solitary guests. She approached the back kitchen entrance, which was marked by a small but persistent vent of warm, in humid air, smelling faintly of roasted meat and cleaning soap. She knocked on the heavy oak door. After a short pause, the latch was undone, and the door was pulled inward by a young woman named Lily, a kitchen hand whose face was flushed from the heat of the back rooms. "Clara, we thought you had finally settled down," Lily whispered, her eyes wide with surprise. "I have my final round to make, Lily," Clara replied. "I brought a small thank you, for you and for Agnes. And I have something for the quiet ones, upstairs." Clara passed the basket to Lily, who immediately inhaled the scent of the winter star pastries with a gasp of pure delight. "Oh, this will be the perfect ending to our long night, Clara." "Thank you," Agnes will weep. Agnes, the owner, appeared from the shadows behind Lily, a tall, imposing woman who ran her inn with the precise, comforting efficiency of a ship captain. She took the basket and placed it on the nearest counter with profound care. "Clara, you are the soul of this town," Agnes said, her voice a warm, low contralto. "We have 3 solitary travelers tonight. 1 commercial merchant, who is fast asleep, and 2 others, who are simply resting between long journeys. A scholar and a musician." "It is the musician I hope to find," Clara said, pulling out a small separate parcel, a dense, dark loaf of the date and walnut bread, and a few extra winter stars, wrapped tightly in a thick linen napkin. Agnes took the small parcel. "He is a quiet one, a young man traveling alone with only his instrument. He arrived late this afternoon, ate a simple meal, and asked only for a quiet corner to tune his lute. He seemed to carry the weight of the long roads. He needs the warmth of home, even if he cannot be there," Clara murmured. "Please, leave this outside his door. Do not wake him. He needs his rest more than he needs a conversation. Just a simple gift, placed gently, so he finds it when he wakes for his journey." Agnes's eyes softened, a rare beautiful break in her stern composure. "It will be done, Clara. I know exactly the feeling you wish to convey. A quiet, anonymous act of comfort. Go now, before the snow gets too deep. May your own heart be the warmest in all of Ethelred." The women exchanged a final, wordless look of understanding, a quiet acknowledgement of the necessity of small, generous acts in the vast quiet of the winter night. Lily and Agnes closed the kitchen door with an almost imperceptible pressure, sealing the warmth and the promise of the pastries back inside the inn. Clara turned away from the building. Her mission was nearly complete. She had only one small portion of the date and walnut bread left, and that was reserved for herself, for her own quiet moment of rest. The weight of the basket on her arm was now significantly lighter, a physical manifestation of the lightness she felt in her spirit. She took the long way home, walking past the front of the inn. It was here, at the crossroads, leading out of the village, that she was met by the sound she had been anticipating all evening. A choir. The sound came from a distance, drifting over the open fields and across the curve of the stream. The faint, harmonious sound of human voices singing a carol. It was a sound that seemed to be traveling from a mile away, muted and softened by the distance and the absorbing nature of the snow. The carol was an old one, a familiar melody that spoke of quiet shepherds and a silent, holy night. The voices were not powerful or professional. They were simply heartfelt, a community of people gathered together, their breaths steaming in the cold air, their voices rising together in a warm, communal swell of sound. Clara paused her walk, standing still at the crossroads, letting the immense quiet of the night be briefly interrupted and then filled by this beautiful distant song. The sound traveled across the fields with a gentle persistence, a promise of shared joy and connection. Even for those who stood alone in the dark, she watched the falling snow, which seemed to be dancing to the rhythm of the faint melody. She was utterly alone on the street, yet she felt completely surrounded by the light of Silas's lamps, the focused silence of Alistair's workshop, the quiet warmth spreading through the inn, and now the soft, distant singing of her neighbors. The song faded slowly, dissolving into the white, humid air, leaving behind only the deep, resonant silence of the snow-covered earth. Clara then turned toward the final lane, a narrow, winding path that led up a low, gentle rise to the small, solitary cottage that was her home. This path was the least lit, marked only by the gentle, ambient glow reflecting off the snow from the center of the village. She walked slowly, feeling the last of the adrenaline and the work of the day receding, replaced by a profound, settling calm. The small wooden mouse in her pocket, the gift from the toy maker, felt warm from the heat of her hand, a smooth, quiet companion on the final leg of her journey. The smell of the air was now even cleaner, purer, dominated by the fresh scent of the snow and the distant, cold wood smoke rising from the village chimneys. She reached her cottage. It was a humble, timber frame structure with a thatched roof, now blanketed in a thick, insulating layer of white. The windows were small, and the front door was heavy and solid. This was her personal sanctuary, the quiet conclusion to her day. Clara unlocked the door, the heavy iron key turning with a loud, final grinding sound that seemed immense in the silence of the night. She stepped inside and closed the door quickly, leaving the cold and the snow on the outside. The air inside Clara's small cottage was immediately and completely comforting. It was a rich, dense atmosphere of dry heat, spiced with the permanent aroma of bay leaves and smoked cedar, a scent she used to season the logs for her fireplace. Her home was dominated by a simple stone hearth, where a low, steady fire was burning, kept alive by a few slow-burning embers placed there before she left for the bakery that morning. The light in the room was exclusively the warm, dancing glow of the fire, casting immense, slow-moving shadows onto the whitewashed walls. The only other sound in the room was the soft, continuous, almost hypnotic crackling and hissing of the wood as it settled into the coals. Clara performed the final, necessary rituals of her day with the same deliberate, unhurried movements she used in her bakery. She took off her heavy coat and scarf, shaking the light dusting of snow from the wool, and hung them on a heavy wooden peg near the door. She knelt by the hearth, opening the iron mesh screen with a soft clang that echoed briefly. She carefully placed one small split log of cedar wood onto the embers, arranging it so it would catch slowly and surely. The wood immediately released a sharp, clean plume of smoke and the scent of cedar, adding a new, fresh layer of warmth to the room. She then went to her small kitchen area and found a clean ceramic mug. She placed a punch of dried cinnamon bark and a few star anise pods into the mug, then poured boiling water from a kettle that sat steaming gently on a low hook by the fire. The immediate sweet steam that rose from the mug was thick with the scent of spice, a final, necessary infusion of warmth. She took the one remaining piece of the date and walnut bread from her nearly empty basket. The bread was still faintly warm, a lasting thermal echo of her day's work. Clara settled into a high-backed wooden chair, covered with a thick, heavy sheepskin fleece, arranging the soft, lanolin-rich wool around her. She held the steaming mug in both hands, feeling the heat seep into her chilled fingers, and she slowly, deliberately began to eat the small slice of dark, sweet bread. The silence in the cottage was profound. It was not an empty silence, but a full, rich one, a silence composed of the soft breathing of the fire, the distant tinkle of a frozen bell on her window ledge, and the quiet, contented stillness of her own body. She looked through the small paned window next to the hearth. The snow was still falling, slow and steady, turning the outside world into a soft, hazy sphere of white and indigo. She could see the faint, golden reflections of the village lights in the distance, a warm, reassuring glow. This was the final, perfect moment of the day, the reflection on the quiet grace of giving. She thought of Silas, his hands warming the winter stars by his hearth fire. She thought of Alistair, sustained by the dense bread, as he put the final luminous dots onto the eyes of his tiny creations. She thought of the solitary musician in the inn, who would wake to find an unexpected silent warmth placed outside his door. In this quiet, unacknowledged act, the deepest meaning of the night was found. It was not in the fanfare or the grand gestures, but in the small, carefully placed pieces of kindness, a warm pastry, a dense loaf of bread, a quiet moment of recognition. Clara felt a profound sense of peace wash over her, a feeling of deep, contented tiredness. Her breathing slowed down naturally, matching the soft, steady rhythm of the settling fire. The cinnamon tea was warm in her belly, and the sheepskin fleece was soft against her back. The tiny, carved wooden mouse in her coat pocket felt like a small, smooth promise of stillness. She leaned her head back against the soft fleece, allowing her gaze to soften as she watched the firelight danced slowly across the ceiling. The world outside was hushed and beautiful, held in the deep, powerful embrace of the snow. All the work was done. All the giving was complete. All that remained was the quiet, necessary surrender to the profound peace of the night. The light in the cottage grew dimmer and dimmer, the fire sinking lower into the ashes, its sound becoming an almost silent sizzle of settling coals. The final distant sound that reached her ears was the soft, persistent pattering of the snow outside the window, a sound that spoke only of endless quiet and unbroken peace. Clara closed her eyes, letting the stillness of the room, the warmth of the fire, and the gentle rhythm of the distant snowfall carry her into a deep, long, and restful sleep. Thank you for joining us on this quiet, heartwarming journey through the village of Ethelred. If the soft rhythm of this Christmas Eve tale helped you find your own moment of peace and stillness, please consider giving this video a like. It helps us share this sense of calm with more people seeking a gentle guide into rest. And if you wish to be notified of our next story, our next quiet journey into history, fiction, or cozy atmosphere, please subscribe to the Dreamy Cozy Library. Until then, may your breathing be slow, may your mind be at peace, and may your dreams be filled with the warmest light of a quiet, snow-covered night.